Do you like Warframe? Do you like Dungeons and Dragons? Well, I've combined the two. Fresh off the digital printing press, you can get the brand new and completely free TENNO'S Tome of Warframes. This is a full-size compendium, nearly 300 pages long, with hundreds of stat blocks for every single Warframe. They're all converted into monsters, compatible with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition and 2024 edition. They come in 4 tiers: Initiate, Adept, Master, and Prime, covering challenge ratings 4, 9, 14, and 19. The Initiates are heavily restricted versions, a pale facade of their fully functional cousins, the Primes, yet still serve as a valid entry into experiencing the threat of facing a Warframe. With each successive tier, the frame gains higher stats in all areas and unlocks additional abilities. The Adept has access to the first 2 abilities of the frame, the Master the first 3, and the Prime has the full suite. If knowing this exists is enough for you, the link to my website where you can download it now is right in the video description. Otherwise, stick around to hear more about the project. I've been working on making this for a very long time, spending approximately 450 hours developing the document in full. This includes initial draft designs, tweaking the process, refining the stat calculations, writing up the many custom spells and features, tailoring the nature of the frames to fit a tabletop game instead of a video game, and of course playtesting. Playtesting included a one-shot early in development with 2 close friends of mine taking on a mini dungeon with 4 total Initiate Warframes lurking in there. In follow-up testing, I formed 2 testing groups with select members of the Kenjnir community. One group consisted of players with little or no experience of Dungeons & Dragons, or tabletop gaming in general. They started at level 3, climbing to level 5 through the playtest as they fought against Initiates and Adepts. The other group consisted of entirely advanced players who knew the game system thoroughly and knew they were going into a combat-focused playtest. They started at level 7 and climbed to level 9, defeating Adepts and Masters. The finale saw the 2 groups cross through a dimensional focus, merging into one mega party to defeat the final boss, Dante Prime. Dante was not going to play fair, however. The 2 parties have been collecting trophies from their successes, like Banshee's shoulder plate, Mag's face mask, or Equinox's greaves. Dante, the powerful wizard he is, laughed at the party for their hubris. He wrenched all the broken pieces of Warframes lost from the players, and before their very eyes assembled one last broken Warframe, Zaku, to fight alongside Dante. This is exactly the kind of scenario that can be introduced into your own groups, whether an existing campaign or a brand new one. It is also part of why I chose to make them all monsters, not player character options. Let's dive into that deeper, as I know it'll be a question for a lot of people. Warframes are pretty simple in themselves. Sure, we can mod them extensively, but the core features they have are a passive and 4 abilities, more or less. This does not make for a very interesting player character. Either then it means expanding into having access to far more than just one Warframe's ability set, or shoehorning it into an existing class. That didn't sit right with me on beginning this project. Then there's the matter of suitability. While almost no table will turn away a simple cleric or barbarian, if a player rocks up to a group and says, "Hi everyone, I'm using a custom character class made by some guy on the internet, designed after magic space ninjas that some of you may not have even heard of." Yeah, a lot of tables won't be okay with that. A lot will, but it's still a hard sell on homebrew class to be fair and balanced. For the uninitiated, homebrew meaning not officially made designs, but instead cooked up by a fan, like me. Homebrew classes can often be poorly balanced or just not well thought out, leading to issues at a table and many GMs refusing to allow it. Monsters don't have to worry about that. The GM of a group is the sole arbiter of what monsters the players face, and the GM can make those monsters do anything. If the GM really wanted, they could put a challenge 30 creature against level 1 players. It'll be dumb and unfun, but they could. This means that a homebrew set of monsters are no different from officially printed monsters in terms of acceptability. If the GM looks at it and likes it, the GM can put it against the players without even needing to say it's homebrew. For example, they could introduce one like this. You stare down the darkened hallway, the damp, chill air stealing away all signs of life and comfort. As the flickering light of your torch creeps up the stonework, you catch a glimpse of a creature, a humanoid it seems. The moment your light spills over it, it turns with a sharp focus, its head covered in a hooded mask, and for but a moment you see 2 daggers in its hands. Then, in a cloud of smoke, it vanishes. Not an escape, no, that would be too easy. You hear a sputtering gurgle from behind as you see the dwarf you hired to carry your bags clutching at his throat. The glistening blade piercing through him from behind is held by a shadowy figure like the one you saw just moments before. The dwarf's struggles come to a sickening halt as his whole body chars and turns to ash on the floor. The shadow vanishes, yet you cannot shake the feeling a marker lingers on your head next. Roll initiative. Monsters can be exotic, wielding abilities which would be either overpowered or simply unfun to utilize repeatedly. By being a monster, something to defeat and discard, these warframes can be ruthless and exceptional in their nature. Wisp can open a proper portal to the sun, Grendel can show the true fear of having an ally instantly swallowed, and Caliban's adaptation can be devastatingly effective. I say can be. One of the playtest Calibans tried going toe-to-toe against a barbarian who could change his elemental damage type at will. Turns out Caliban can't adapt that quickly. That is another crucial part of these warframes as monsters. They are designed to be defeatable. It's not a child in the playground shouting fantasy buzzwords and declaring themselves victorious. Each of these warframes has strengths and weaknesses. Some are amazing at clearing conditions and preventing new ones. Some are great at team support, some are able to fly or swim or burrow, and some can even turn the players back on each other repeatedly. The challenge is in navigating their strengths to find their weaknesses and pummel them into the ground. As it so happens, pummeling them into the ground is a surprisingly effective technique with sufficient points in grappling. Thanks for that, playtester. You know who you are. As part of making them defeatable, there are the tiers of warframes. I could have designed them to all have their 4 abilities, scaling all of them up with level. However, I felt this didn't do justice to the potential for their design. By making the lower tiers have fewer abilities, they also had fewer exotic features for lower tier player characters to handle. On the flip side, it meant the 4th and ultimate ability of each warframe could be tailor-made to be impressive and terrifying, holding back only so far as to keep some semblance of gameplay balance. Mace's Peacemakers don't have to account for level 4 play, for example, allowing for a single, simple spell to describe the full power they can bring to bear. This also means that the lower tier warframes are far less daunting to run. A common theme in these designs is to remember the human, the GM, who will be controlling and tracking one or more monsters. If you start stacking all the different conditions that are handled automatically in Warframe, the video game, most GMs would fall apart in despair. At each stage, the warframes are made to be manageable. Some are more complex than others, of course, and it is up to the individual GM and group to decide which ones suit them best. If you're running a campaign entirely devoid of guns, don't use Citanine and Mesa. If you're running a campaign where permadeath isn't really supposed to be a threat, don't bring out the soul-consuming effects of Necros and Inaros. There are options all throughout to allow you to pick the level, the theme, the difficulty, and the complexity to match your game. Don't forget, of course, this is just a document. If you look at Harrow and decide he deserves to have a Glock instead, go right ahead. It may not be balanced, but it'll be yours, and the other 95% of the stat block will still be there to make it feel like Harrow. On that note of feel and setting, a critical piece of this project is that all the warframes are autonomous, like Umbra. There's no Tenno anywhere in the document except the title of it, because for people new to Warframe, the Tenno are a pretty big problem. While I'm sure many will be okay with the concept, a GM going, "Haha, you thought you were fighting some exotic super ninja, but really, you just butchered an abused child soldier. Enjoy your 4th grade moral quandaries in this casual game." There are plenty of people who wouldn't appreciate that kind of gotcha. So, for the sake of being a little more setting agnostic, the whole abused child soldier element isn't a thing here. The warframes are evil for evil's sake, plundering little loot goblins that they are. They're not above killing children, however, if that's the direction you want to take them. I could go on for hours about this project, going through the individual stat block designs, the changes I chose to make to keep identities while still converting to tabletop, and the playtesting shenanigans that happen as a result. Perhaps I should leave such rambling to my live streams on Twitch. For now, check out the link in the video description. If you enjoy the document and feel it's worth a little more than free, you can optionally tip me too through the same link, before or after downloading. The single biggest thing you can do to help make this project worth it for me is to simply share it as far as you can. Show your group, show your friends, like this video, whatever helps more people find this. Or if you think it's trash, don't do that, I guess? Anyway, that concludes something like 450 hours of work plus the length of this video. I hope you enjoy the opportunity as players to face off against Warframes in a roleplay combat setting, or to subject your players to these exotic creatures if you're the GM. That's all from me for now, so as always, roll initiative, defeat Warframes, and fight well, adventurers.